This video is not intended to encourage or glorify any kind of drug use. The sole purpose of these videos is to educate you on the dangers of what these substances can do to you. Please do not do any of the acts mentioned in this video. I repeat, do not do any of the acts mentioned in this video.
Welcome to the world of Tales from the Trip.
In 2018, my life seemed great. Me and my boyfriend were doing great. We got our first apartment with our 2 kids. I was on Lexapro for anxiety and depression for 2 years. I can confidently say I never missed a dose. I even took it during pregnancy. Well, I was feeling great, so I decided to stop taking it without any medical help. I tapered down by taking it Monday, skipping it Tuesday, taking it Wednesday, and skipping it altogether. First huge mistake. During this time, I met a pretty cool neighbor. We bonded over that our kids were the same age, 5 and 1. It was during the summer, so our oldest kids were on summer break. I would go to her apartment every morning and we would smoke weed. What I liked about her is that we would take turns smoking each other out. We would even talk about me watching her kids while she was at work since I was a stay-at-home mom. So one night, me and my family were walking to our apartment after a birthday party. She texted me to come over to smoke. I was kind of confused because we would only hang out in the morning while she was getting ready for work. I trusted her, she was my friend, right? Second huge mistake. After I got everything settled at home, I headed over to her apartment. She was out on her balcony and she didn't allow me to come inside, so I had to hop over. She gave me my own joint and didn't want any of my weed. She just wanted us to smoke her stuff. I started smoking, kind of weirded out with everything going on. I legit thought I was being paranoid since I was officially off my meds for a week. I don't remember anything after that until 11:30 the next morning. I don't remember going home. I don't remember getting to bed. I don't remember getting up with the kids. Nothing. I was FaceTiming my boyfriend while he was on a lunch break. For some reason, I thought he was going to ask me to marry him. Then after, he made it clear he wasn't. I was convinced my stepdad was going to ask my mom. I started texting my mom really weird things. I thought my phone knew what I was saying in my head since it has the suggestions. After the call, I was on the couch with my kids and little sister, and I was thinking the TV was talking to me, and I was trying to talk to my sister about it, but I was freaking her out. Then my brain told me that I didn't deserve to have 2 daughters, and my neighbor deserves my youngest. Mind you, I haven't really talked to this neighbor, just a hi bye since we had a huge language barrier. She had 2 sons. I remember my mind just racing and hearing everything. I was even hearing car doors closing from the parking lot. I was walking down my steps to the neighbor's apartment and I knocked on her door and she answered very confused, and I put my daughter down and pushed her into her house. I went back to my apartment and my sister was really worried about my daughter, asking what happened, where is she? I just stood in the middle of the living room. I thought I was replying to her, but I was replying to her in my head. The next thing I remember is standing at the neighbor's balcony and my mouth being so dry. I was holding my daughter and talking with the neighbor and her friend who speaks English. I looked over and saw my mom walking towards us. She took my daughter and started walking up to my apartment and told me to get inside. I looked at my neighbor and said, "Whose mom's is this?" in a New York accent. The English-speaking one laughed and said, "That's your mom. Go follow her." In my apartment, I was trying to clean. My mom was asking questions like, what am I on, what happened, and what am I wearing? I was wearing boxer briefs, a big Pickle Rick shirt, and no bra. I would never go outside without a bra, but for some reason, that question pissed me off, and I took off my shirt and threw it at her. She got on the phone and was talking to someone, and I asked her who she was talking to, and she didn't answer me. I'm not sure if I was really talking or doing that thing I was doing to my sister. It made me so mad that she was ignoring me. so I attacked her. Somehow we ended up outside and I hit her a few times and took her phone and hung it up and went back into my apartment. I attacked my mom with no bra and no shirt outside with everyone still there. Next thing I remember was a very dominant voice telling me to put my shirt back on, so I did. Then the voice was asking me what I was on, and I jokingly said, "The only drug I'm on is weed, if you know what I mean," and I hit his shoulder in a joking way. Next thing I know, I am face down on my couch being arrested. I was placed in an SUV police car. There were so many police officers there. I then remember my daughter sitting next to me and it feeling so hot. This was July in Arizona. The cop didn't turn on the AC. I tried to get their attention, but they were all too busy talking to each other. My daughter was going to die, so I panicked and started hanging my head on the divider. After me banging my head, the cop finally came into the car and yelled at me to stop. I yelled back and told him he's going to kill my daughter. He turned on the truck and continued talking to the other officers. Next thing I remember was making it to jail. I was asking for water and they told me it was in the toilet. That really grossed me out. I drank until I almost threw up. I was called to a desk to talk to a lady. As I was walking out the cell, I came to realize I was the only black person there. I do have a Hispanic last name, so I freaked out and started screaming that I was a legal citizen and to take me home for me to get my social security card. Everyone just looked at me. I was talking to the lady at the desk, but I was so paranoid I thought they were going to ship me out to Mexico. She was getting irritated and said she'll have to talk to me once I calmed down. The officer told me to sit next to the only lady in the waiting room. There were about 16 guys and just us 2 girls. I took my mugshot and was taken with the lady to get searched. I begged the officer to not touch my breast, and she did. I was taken to another cell. I was by myself and there was a phone in there with bondsman numbers and whatnot. I was trying to call my mom, but it wasn't going through. There was an officer walking back and forth, and every time I tried talking to her, she ignored me. I decided I was going to get her attention by exposing my breast. When I did that, those guys from before from outside the door acted like they haven't seen a breast before. The officer got so angry and covered the window with the trash bag. That's when everything just went crazy. I laid down on that dirty-ass floor and started kicking the door. I was screaming that I was going to kill myself. At that moment, I felt like a child. Next thing I remember was being in the observation room. I was so scared because this room was exactly what my mom described when I was a kid and being bad. It was a crazy house where there's nothing but a hole in the floor to pee in. I was completely naked with nothing but a gross stuffed blanket. At this point, I was seeing shadow people. These people were my family. The 2 taller ones was my mom and sister. The other 2 were my kids. I was trying to get them to let me out. I ended up getting a hold of my younger daughter in the blanket and was rocking back and forth telling her it was okay. I started hearing my dad talking to me, telling me I did something bad and I need to fix it. I have never talked to my dad in my life, so I don't know how I was talking to him. I believed him. I was crying and telling my daughter I am so sorry. Every so often, someone would open the small window and ask if I was okay, and before I'd say anything, they would shut it. I started reliving my assaults as a child in early 20s. It was playing over and over. I felt like a 5-year-old again. I completely forgot about this stuff, and I thought what I did remember was a movie or something. These flashbacks made me remember what I was making myself forget. Out of nowhere, a lady opened the door and told me I am leaving. I screamed and cried and told them I can't go to Mexico. I don't know Spanish. She grabbed me. The next thing I remember was being in a little room with medical stuff. They took my mouth swab and was trying to take my fingerprints. I kept moving my hands for them to not get it, but the lady death gripped my hand to get a good reading. Next thing I remember was standing in a hallway with 1 door behind me and 1 door ahead of me. They told me to walk through the doors. I was so confused because it couldn't have been that easy. I was terrified that behind those doors was a firing squad. I spent about 10 minutes in that hallway until that same lady yelled and told me if I don't leave, they will make me leave. I opened the door and I thought I was in New York. I was so confused. There were people walking around and they looked at me as if I was crazy. I heard my name and looked over, and my boyfriend and his sister were running across the street. I fell to my knees and cried. I got into the car and they were asking me what happened. I thought they were recording my answers. I thought the radio was talking to me. The colors of the building were beautiful. I thought they were the way home. Next, I remember being at home and my sister-in-law was asking me who my kids were and pointing at the pictures. I didn't know their names, but I knew their colors. I was really in love with colors. My boyfriend tried to get me to lay down and rest. I thought it was code for him to kill me. I was scared to lay down. Then I thought he was my abuser when I was 5 to 10 years old. I said, "Oh, we have to do this again?" And I said my abuser's name. He was confused and I started taking off all my clothes and crying. He told me to stop and I then told him I'm going to jump out the window, and I got past him and hit out the screen. I remember I was hiding from 2 police officers behind my bed. I was telling them that I'm not going to Mexico again. I got a huge amount of energy and started eating the candy on the TV stand. I remembered that candy makes me sick, so I spit it all out in my hand and threw it at the cops. Then I remember being in the cop car and I got so scared about the AC not being on, but they were really nice to me and told me it's on. I was talking shit to one of the cops and telling him that he's cheating on his wife. They pretty much just laughed and told me to relax. They took me to a mental hospital. I could see my boyfriend and his sister talking to the officers, and I was screaming for him and hitting the car window, but he didn't hear me. They took me in a room. I was back at a young age and started flipping over the chairs and just was full of energy. Soon someone came in and told me to take a seat, and someone else was at the door taking notes. I screamed at the lady taking notes and told her to get the fuck out. When I did this, a bunch of other people came in. One of the people that came in was so handsome. He was tall and had long curly hair. I was amazed by his looks. They told me to sit down and relax and they are going to help me. I sat down just amazed at him. I told him he looked like Moana. They gave me an antipsychotic shot. He disappeared. I'm still not sure if he was real or not. I then was told to get dressed and take a pee test. That's when I found out I had meth in my system. I lost it because the only thing I was down to do was weed. The nurse who was with me told me mistakes like that happen all the time. I know she was just trying to keep me calm. After this, I was walked with a man who was lecturing me about being sober for my kids and doing better. He let me in this room where there were about 10 recliner chairs, and every single one was covered in white blankets. I screamed that everyone was dead and to take me back. I thought this was a process of death. I sat in the room. I don't remember much until I was led into another room, and it was full of people. I asked for a phone and they gave it to me. I called my mom to come and get me, and she just kept telling me she can't. I would hang up on her, walk around the room, and call her again. I did this more times for me to count. She would still answer and say the same thing. Next, I was in a ward. I was terrified because everyone was in recovering of hardcore drugs. I was sharing a room with a lady. My brain was telling me she was my neighbor who drugged me. I told her in a very serious voice that I know what she did and I will never forgive her for it. I'm pretty sure I scared her and she sat up in her bed with her back against the wall. The next morning we were eating and I was scared to eat. I thought they were poisoning me. A very nice patient that was sitting next to me asked me what was wrong. I told him I'm not going to eat because it's poisonous. He told me that I need to eat or else I won't go home. He then grabbed one of my foods and took a bite out of it and said, "See, nothing's wrong with this." I'm really grateful for this guy because he really looked after me. I truly hope he's doing good. I was so out of it, I don't even remember his name. My favorite time of the day was when my boyfriend would come to visit. I always asked him if he was there to take me home. He would say no. He always looked so tired and sad. I would try to cheer him up by playing cards or something. I hated when he had to leave. I felt very kid-like when he was visiting. After about 8 days, I was released. I was diagnosed with bipolar and was put on a bunch of meds. I really struggled with this experience. The hospital referred me to a counselor. After about a year and 3 counselors later, I found out I was misdiagnosed. My psychosis was because of me getting off my meds too fast and being drugged with something I've never tried before. My brain just freaked out. I actually have bipolar disorder, and I didn't need to be on all the medication I was on. I still deal with this every day. This happened in 2018, and I am still in therapy. My relationship went to shit. We are still together, but we did break up a bunch. Life's okay now. I am diagnosed as SMI, and I'm seeking Social Security disability insurance. Wish me luck. My takeaway to this is to follow your gut. You never know someone truly, and most importantly, forgive yourself.